Sports stories from the 419 in Northwest Ohio, brought to you by a voice you know. It's time to go around the area and around the Hearn.
Hello and welcome into a very special edition of Around the Hearn. If you listen to all of the podcasts in this series, you will have heard this a handful of times, and for that, I'd apologize, but it's just the easiest way to do it. I've got a massive undertaking with this series. I did this last year and didn't have as many coaches, but have been blessed to have so many great coaches be a part of this. 45 total interviews where you will hear from girls coaches, boys coaches, and a little bit of a preview of the season, which kicked off last night as I'm recording this. Happy Thanksgiving, by the way, as my daughter would say, gobble, gobble, gobble. But I really love this series, and I really hope you enjoy it. I hope you reach out to me either on Facebook or on Twitter, because it's a labor of love. 45 coaches are separated like this. Putnam County girls are represented by Calliope's Adam Huber, Vaughn Horseman of Audubon, Sean O'Connor from Fort Jennings, and Ross Yearman of Miller City. Putnam County boys, Connor Coles from Grove, Mike Lee from Pandora Gaboa, Scott Keck from Continental, the one and the only Keith Utendorf from Audubon, Ross Kaufman of Miller City, and Ryan Steckschulte from Kalida. Northwest Conference girls, Adam Burris, who's had a big week. He picked up his first win as the head coach of the Bluffton girls. Had a big turnaround, too, because they were outscored in the first half, but held Cory Rawson to just 11 points. Greg Ekus, in a decade of Ekus at Spencerville. Aaron Montgomery at Allen East. Kyle Williams from Lincoln View, and Mark Gregory from Crestview. NWC boys, you've got Ada's Vince Halliday. Kevin Sensabaugh from Spencerville, now in his 22nd year, by the way. Gabe Young from Allen East. Jordan Jenninghoff from Delphus Jefferson. Brett Hammonds of Lincoln View, and Doug Etzler from Crestview. Midwest Athletic Conference, Parkway's Dan Williamson. Amy Meyer from Coldwater. Best Drive from Marion Local. Mike Wiss from Minster, and Andy Timmerman from New Bremen. The Midwest Athletic Conference has the entire conference full of coaches. Aaron Elwer from St. John's, Travis Swank from Versailles, Doug Hughes from Parkway, Eric Rosenbeck of St. Henry, Nick Fisher from Coldwater, Mike McClurg from Minster, New Bremen's Cory Stevens, Kurt Goettemoeller from Marion Local, and Carson Manger from New Knoxville. Western Buckeye League, Kenton's Ryan Miller, Trey Elkert from Wapak, Matt Tabler from Elida, and Tyson McLaughlin from Ottawa Glandorf. WBL Girls, Hannah Flippo from Van Wert and Elise Jenkins from Elida. GMC has both Wayne Trace coaches, and Jim Linder on the boys and Bethany Desjardins for the girls. Shelby County the exact same way for Fort Loramie. Carlos Siegel and Mitch Westerheide. And just for good measure, Anna's Nate Barhorst. Those are the coaches that I was able to spend some time and talk to this week and the last 2 weeks. And it has been quite literally a huge undertaking, like I said before. So I really hope that you enjoy it, that you get some entertainment, you get some knowledge, you get some value out of it. I'm really excited about the basketball season starting and the crossover with the state semifinals for football this weekend. And I can't thank the coaches enough for being a part of it. And without further ado, I bring you the 23-24 Around the Hearn season basketball preview. Enjoy. Talking about Coldwater Cavaliers basketball, and there's a good chance that if you are, you're probably talking about Nick Fisher. Hopefully in the positive lights, as he's got a team. Well, he's waiting for his team, to be honest. It's kind of the crux of having a great football program, and it's obviously not the first time you've had that, but is it a little bit different each time, maybe how you deal with it, or is it just kind of you just wait and see and hope for the best?
I think it's a little bit different. As far as when do you start? How are kids' health? How are they feeling health wise? Are they injury free? Which for the most part, I think we are. But I think it's a little bit of we're scrambling, trying to get some scrimmages, so maybe we can get a little bit of live action before we open up the season. So I think that changes every year. But we're kind of excited about the opportunity.
Well, and it's such an odd thing, too, because, I mean, pretty much the entire time that you've been the boys coach, you guys have had this issue where you've got to wait. And, with having the carryover from what Chip's team goes through and then what your team goes through and then traditionally what Brian's teams have gone through in the spring. I mean, you guys do a tremendous job of just being able to understand and help each other out of, okay, I'll be patient. We'll go because we're just proud of what these kids are doing from season to season to season.
Oh, without a doubt, it's always been, that's one of the pluses. Coaching here is Chip's great to work with. Brian was unbelievable to work with, and Cory's been good to work with. So I think the kids feel that too. I think they understand that we all want the best for them, no matter what sport they're in, and we're willing to work with them. To be 3 sport athletes is tough, and we have a lot of them. So I think it's definitely a plus here at Coldwater that it's always tough getting a late start, but it's a plus that the kids come in with great attitudes, great support on all 3 sides as far as that goes. So yeah, it's just been a good experience there.
Then of course there's the ever-present thing that you guys never start with an easy schedule. You can't just put a couple of cupcakes in the beginning and say, hey, just give us a couple of games to get our feet under us. You pretty much hit a brick wall and try to figure out how to sledgehammer your way through it from game 1 on.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because we've always, you can open up December 1st or 2nd, and we've always kind of left that weekend open as far as basketball is concerned, just for the fact of trying to schedule later in the season gets tough too. To try to prevent an NBA schedule, we loaded up, pretty much on the back end and play a lot of Fridays, Saturdays, which is another tough situation to be in. But again, I think our kids will be ready, and having, maybe 8 to 10 days of practice versus some years we have maybe 3 or 4 days of practice is something, I know it sounds weird because you would love to have a month, and 5 scrimmages, but that's, just doesn't happen here. So the opportunity to have a couple weeks and you're going to work in a couple scrimmages too, we're excited.
Well, it's kind of funny because I had talked to Brett Hammonds at Lincoln View, and he had a schedule that saw a scrimmage with 2 other opponents. One was Versailles, one was Salina, and they both kind of called and said, I don't think we're going to be able to make that. And he tried to figure out maybe what they were going to do. So maybe give him a call. He's looking for a scrimmage.
We usually reach out, and that happens, when we got beat on Friday night, Saturday, I spent some time on the phone and via email, reaching out to people and people reaching out to us. So yeah, that again, it's kind of worked out for a positive.
And I don't necessarily think that people, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus, whatever, where kids in Division I schools or Division II are pretty much they go one sport, they do that all year round. I don't think they really understand that when you look at these schedules and you look at these kids and say, well, there's only X amount of kids. They do a little bit of everything. Why is X team starting slow? Well, if you don't understand that, that's different for them and you.
Yeah, definitely. And I have a friend that coaches, Trenduce coaches of Vandalia Butler, and we share, ideas and just talking, and they have a lot of kids that are either one sport or maybe 2 sport athletes, but not very many. And it's just a whole different, it's a whole different situation here because we need those guys that play 3 sports. All 3 of us do. So it does put us in a little bit different perspective. And again, you want the best for them getting out of the gate, but sometimes you got to kind of approach those first few games, kind of like, they're games, obviously, and we want to be competitive. We want to win, but they're kind of like scrimmages to get ready for basically the MAC, because we open up, on the 8th and 9th, and then we play St. Henry on the 15th, which is a MAC game. So that makes it kind of tough, but again, kids will be ready.
End of 2023, you've got back-to-back nights at home against Ansonia and Cardinal Stridge. Does that come out of sort of not having the Holiday Classic anymore, but still wanting to be home on that weekend?
Exactly. And it'll work out differently next year where we'll have to travel, but it worked out this year that they were home games. And again, just trying to change the schedule up a little bit and play a little bit different competition. But again, hopefully not not too far from home, especially this year. So that worked out kind of nice. We're kind of excited about that too.
Well, I know that that's different. I mean, having to play, depending on which way the MAC schedule flips and all that, of having, say, Marion, or even with your non-conference, having Salina almost back-to-back. But I always enjoyed that. I always thought that was a great test and a showcase of local teams, and I personally was sad to see it go.
Yeah, and I think quite a few people were, and I'm not saying it wasn't a bad thing or might
Plus,
not come around.
the food wasn't bad either.
Right. They always take care of us in the hospitality room for sure. But again, I think it's just something that kind of ran its course, and it is tough having 3 MAC schools in there with Salina. And again, like you said, we played Salina basically the week after, or week and a half after the asset allocation. So again, we're just kind of excited about the opportunity just to play somebody different. But yet, hopefully this year, like you said, still be at home.
I know that, again, with a lot of years where it seemed like either Marion would play Salina almost back-to-back or you guys would, just the weird way that worked out. But you look at last year, you guys go 10-13. You have that big win against Minster after that losing streak. What was it like the night of the 17th against Minster, where it kind of seemed like everything that you had been battling for that previous 2 weeks sort of came together correctly?
And again, getting a late start, that's something that happens sometimes. You want to be playing your best basketball at the end of the year, obviously, and sometimes it's a struggle. But again, that was obviously a fun night because, like you said, we shot well, we defended well. Just a really good opportunity for us. So I don't know, like I said before, I don't know if there's a perfect way to do it. You just got to try to keep plugging away and grind it out. And like we said, hopefully playing your best basketball towards the end.
And the league was fascinating too to me, kind of being able to see it through the long view of you come out through your first 15 games, you're 9-6, but you're 5-0, and a lot of people are saying, why are they so much better in the league? Was there anything that changed, or was it just shots went down in league play?
I think we just played really well in those league games early on, and again, hopefully we can springboard that into this year. You know how it is. The MAC's just such a brutal schedule, anyways. Week in, week out, you're gonna play some good competition. And this year, I think there's a lot of parity in the league, and I kind of feel like it's pretty much wide open.
How do you guys fit into that picture?
I think we can be in the mix for sure. Again, that first game against St. Henry will be a big one. For everybody involved. But I really feel positive about the opportunity to maybe contend for a league title, or at least share it with a few other teams, which is pretty likely, I think.
I think that St. Henry game may be the perfect isolation on your schedule, in that you play these brutal back-to-backs. Like the next week, you get Shawnee and Ayersville, you get Ansonia and Cardinal Stritch, you got Knoxville and Elida, all on back-to-back nights. But that one, you don't have to worry about it because you can quite literally put everything into Friday night.
And again, I totally agree with you. And we usually do that. We really focus on preparing, for Friday, take that first game of the weekend and get after it. But, as a coach, you still have to be ready for that Saturday night game or that second game of the week because, they're going to be ready for you. So again, there's some preparation that goes in for that, in the scouting report. And there's things we might work on through the week that, maybe we don't really let the kids know that this isn't Friday night's game. This is more getting ready for Saturday night's game. But it's a combination. Again, we go after that Friday night game really hard just because we'd like to contend for a MAC title.
Now, I've been pitching this coaches basketball game this year and in previous years to a lot of coaches. And this year I've gotten more pushback where it seems like it would be a terrible idea because there'd be a lot of cherry picking. When you were brought up, I joked with Eric and I joked with Aaron Elwer about this, and I can't figure out how I would make this go because you and Eric pretty much said the same thing. You guys would just be cherry picking on the blocks. So I think it would just be one team scores, throws it down the court to the other, and they score. So, I mean,
exactly.
Maybe if you're willing to put forth a little more effort when I put this together, you could, you can be a starter.
Well, I know in my heart and in my head I'd sure be ready to go, but my knees might speak over it.
I'm just standing on the block, picturing myself running up and down the court.
Yep, you'd have to get us the ball in the right spot, I guess.
I mean, I guess I could, we could bring back donkey basketball, I guess. We could make that work.
I did that once at Salina. That was quite interesting.
I did too, and I was a much better basketball player than I was in real life.
I was a little younger myself.
I look forward to seeing you guys a handful of times. I always love coming to the Palace. I wish you much success.
Well, Michael, we appreciate everything you do for local sports, across the board. I know you probably don't hear it all the time, but I know the kids look forward to seeing you, and it's just a positive for high school sports in general.
I appreciate it. I hear it a lot, and I never know how to respond.
Well, we appreciate it.
That's Nick Fisher. We're talking to Coldwater basketball. Minster basketball with one of my favorite coaches in Mike McClurg. Now, he's got a team that I'm told can really shoot the basketball, and it has a very big young man who is pretty good. That's pretty much the synopsis of your team, right?
Yeah, I think we have potential. Obviously, in the guard play, get a few kids that can shoot it, and hopefully space the floor for us, Mike. And we do have we've got two kids in the middle. One is a 6'8" sophomore and Cole Albers, and then also we have an Ian Holman who's about 6'3", 6'4", big solid kid. So we're anticipating to have a nice inside out game.
Well, it's kind of funny because until your email specifically points out that Cole Albers is a sophomore, I honestly forgot. My brain went to, he's got to be a junior or something, because he played so much and played so well and so many big minutes for you last year that it just feels like he's been around longer.
Yeah, I would guess that. I would guess by the time he's a senior, you're going to be, you'll hear his name a lot. It's just, progressing, and, he along with a couple other kids last year got put in a, tough spot where they're playing as freshmen. And there's a lot of things, that I learned through that. And I think they all learned. And one of those is, playing in the MAC as a freshman is not the easy task. But I think, it made those kids better regardless of the record. And they we really didn't have a lot of options with our depth, and but they learned a lot. I think it progressively will help us into the future.
I joked with Mike West when I talked to him that I was going to find a giant fly swatter and send it to you guys to deal with the injury bug that seems to just be running rampant through your school, but it really hindered a lot of what you wanted to do. I mean, with Brogan out, with James Niemeyer out, you were able to change that, but like you said, having to play freshmen at the level of a schedule that you guys play with, that's not an easy task. And how was that sort of explaining that to them of, hey, you guys want to find out if you're good, I'm going to throw you into the fire and see what you can do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, to your point, the last couple of years, it's just been so much focus on health, and Brogan's banged up again this year. We anticipate to have him back at some point in December, and James is banged up again. He got a hand issue against Marion in football. So we're kind of back in the same situation. I think the difference for us this year is, I think everybody's a year older. So we're going to be able to handle the physicality. Our guys have done a good job in the weight room. And going back to last year, we were kind of, if you want to say, we're dealt a bad hand, but at the same time, there was some learning, and we explained it to your question, Mike. I mean, it's a process, and this is a situation. So what situation we're in, and ignore the record and just really focus on getting better. And I think we took a lot of lumps. We were competitive in a lot of games that, like you said, the younger guys had shown some promise and competed with a lot of really good teams. And then we also got blown out. a couple games where, just the physicality of everything just showed. So we're pretty excited about what we have. I don't anticipate Brogan or James's or season-ending injuries. I think it's just coming out of football stuff initially. So when we get everybody back and healthy and on the same page, I think we can compete with the best of them.
I just assume that your roster is you just closed your eyes and picked a bunch of Minster names, and they just happen to be true because, Homan, McClurg, Kettner, Wiss, Schmiesing, Pranger, Niemeyer, Albers. I feel like you could just walk down a hallway and find 5 of those at any point. You just said, they just sound good enough.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely we get a couple just grades of athletes, and Niemeyer's a big name, and he's had several brothers that have been really good athletes in our school system. So obviously, it's put a couple grades some athletes together here, and excited about that.
I think that's maybe it for me, is that I called a lot of their brothers or their cousins, or in a couple of cases I know their dads, that it just maybe feels like they've been around forever but that's really neat because you're not that far removed from, for instance, Andrew Kettner, of having his brother be a terrific player and a terrific shooter for you. That are you able to use those guys, maybe whether it's open gym or practices, and you find that the guys that you've had come through your system, that maybe they've already imparted some wisdom about your program or about the MAC or about basketball or whatever to their younger brothers?
Yeah, I think so. Right now, actually, Mike Kettner is a varsity assistant this year, so he graduated from Bluffton, which is really cool because he played for me for 3 years, and now he's back coaching with us. So he's imparting his wisdom every day. And then I know like Connor Schmiesing, I coached both of his brothers, and Isaac I know is a pretty big basketball guy, and he's in his brother's year as well. So, but just generally, I think we've got a good alumni base for the last 7 years that I've coached, of guys that are talking to the other guys and making sure that they're keeping the main thing, and things culturally that we use year in and year out, and what we're about, playing hard and getting after it.
I just assume that in practice that Mike Kettner is probably challenging and beating nearly every kid to a 3-point contest, because he's still one of my favorite shooters, of just as effortless as it seems like he gets those off.
It has. He's been challenged a little bit though this year. He graduated in his first couple of weeks. It was a struggle, but now he's shooting it pretty well in practice with us. we were riding him pretty hard at the start. Is he going to make a shot, Mike? But I think his brother, his youngest brother's give him a run for his money. He's a pretty nice little shooter for us too.
You start the season with Houston on the 8th, and then you pretty much go away for what feels like forever before you come home for 2 just insane opponents, and then you go to Fort Loramie for the MLK Classic against what is always a pretty good Toledo Christian team. Your first month of the season may be insane. It's very possible.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule. We go Houston, Walpock, and then we have Russia and Spencerville and Anna right after that. All 3 really, really good teams. Obviously, Russia brings almost everybody back from a state final team. And then, we kick off the first part of the year. It's a tough start to the schedule. I think the advantage we only have 5 games before the new year. And then January turns into, kind of a lot of games within that 30-day stretch. But yeah, I think, just in terms of us preparing ourselves and getting ready, I'm excited that we have some practice time here at the start, and have week games to start, and that's going to be huge for us as we hit into January, and like I said earlier, just hopefully healthy.
There have been a lot of coaches on this set of podcast interviews that I've done that have talked a lot about coaching their kid, and I've been fascinated by it. When you kind of go into that and you start with about a season and a half ago now with Cole before he's going into his freshman year, how does that work? I mean, are you guys able to, when you walk out of the gym, you leave it there? Or is there some kind of maybe dad would approach something a certain way in the gym, but when you get in the car or when you get home, maybe coach would say it a certain way. And then maybe when you get home, maybe dad says something, but he kind of in a different way.
I don't think I was very good at it last year. And obviously, as I've kind of mentioned you to before, Mike, it kind of put him in a tough spot last year. And, the cool thing about Cole, and so I think it was rough. There were times where it was rough last year. It's not an easy thing to do. I've tried to talk to a lot of guys, Brett Norris, talk to Aaron Elwer, coaches his son, Brooke Cups, guys like that I know have coached their son and just how that works. And I think there's a period of pain. And then I think there's, if everybody handles it the right way, but best thing, first of all, with him, he's as invested in this program as I am. And that's pretty cool for me to watch. It's really important to him. But the best thing that happened is him getting his license. So we don't have to drive home together.
The best and worst thing.
Yeah. Yeah. On the flip
now
side,
you got something else to worry about.
Yeah, that's right. But not having to drive home together, and we can both kind of decompress, and but you can try to separate it out and say we're not going to talk basketball at home. But the reality of our life is that game is so important to our family. That's literally all we do talk about. So whether it's with my daughter, played, or my younger son, or even my cheerleader daughter, we're talking hoops all the time.
Well, plus he gets to listen to his own music, isn't stuck, listening to yours.
That's a fact. That's a different. He's into rap, and I'm straight country. So
I kind of figured that was where that was going to go. Not a big 2 Chainz guy.
No.
I only need 1 chain. Do you think though that is more of a pressure on you or on him?
I think it's him. I think as a dad, you feel some pressure, but I think he feels a lot of pressure for the program, and I'm sure that he's taking crap from other kids, or he's probably taking extra crap from other teams or whatever, just for being a coach's kid. So I think that is a tough thing, but like he and I have talked about, just moving forward, it's going to make you stronger. It's going to make you tougher, and I think that's kind of the approach we're going with it. But he's pretty tough to it all. It's just, again, he's as invested in this thing as I am, and that's the cool part for me to see.
I know last season was a tough thing, but in a 4-game stretch, you guys had 3 games that came down to 3 or less points, one of which went to overtime. How much did you learn, or did the kids learn in those kind of games, that with a lot of the same core back for this year, you can maybe change or how to approach if it happens this season with a close game?
A lot. I think the older you get, Mike, and as your team gets, those closer games become not, just easier to win. As you mentioned, just having the maturity and having been through that situation, and the confidence of knowing how this has gone before. But we did. I mean, we competed, in that stretch with some really good teams, and I think after that point, we had lost a lot of confidence that we didn't pull a couple of those out. But Lucas game was a big one that we were right there. Really good team, and I think we learned a lot. And then as we fast forward from there into the summer, I think you see yourself. Although the summer doesn't matter, but it kind of does. That there were situations similarly that we were in, and you just felt the confidence of the team starting to improve, and we got this, and the physicality of who we are is going to change some of those in the game things too, just in terms of, we got guys that are heavier, more mature, year older, and kind of know what to, how to handle some of those things a little bit better.
Well, I'm excited to see you guys a handful of times, and I can't wait to call your team. I know you're going to have a big year.
Yeah, we're excited. We're excited to get this thing going in the right direction. And again, we're in a tough schedule to start. We're just hoping to get. I know it's cliche, but we're just hoping to truly get better every week that we go out there. So hopefully that's what you see. Boys are going to play hard.
That's a look at Minster basketball with Mike McClurg. We've got more from the Midwest Athletic Conference coming up. Parkway basketball on tap now as we talk to the Panthers boss and Doug Hughes, and you are just a couple of weeks away from the start of the season. As you get through, how are you feeling going through practices and scrimmages getting ready for Upper Scioto Valley?
Oh, we feel real good about our group. We really like our depth this year. We've got a bunch of guys returning, as well as a real hungry group that came off a successful season as JV players last year, and they're in the mix now. So we feel very good about our depth. We've had some really competitive practices to begin the season.
Everybody has gotten a little bit of a chance to get healthy. I mean, you get an earlier start that obviously you would like with the way that football turned out, but how does that help having those multi-sport kids where they're going to go straight from football, they go straight through basketball, and then they go into baseball, of being able to build sort of that camaraderie in each other?
Yeah, we really like multi-sport athletes simply from a standpoint of competition and competing. It doesn't matter what sport you're playing, you're still competing, and you still got to step up and get the job done when your number's called. And the more experiences that you have like that, the better athlete you are, as well as I think it just puts you in the right mindset as far as competition goes. And it really does help you being in those competitive situations in multiple sports. You talked about health there. We're not real healthy right now as Fletcher Smith is dealing with a foot injury, and so he hasn't practiced yet, and he's probably going to be out for another 10 days to 2 weeks. And then Trevor Stearns is out right now, and he should be coming back in probably a week, 10 days. So we're not extremely healthy right now, but it's given us a chance for other guys to step up and compete in practice and fill a role.
See, you have to be honest. I was trying to put out that happy vibe of trying to get everybody, kumbaya and healing and all that. I was trying to help you out.
We are healing, and I guess if these injuries were to happen at any time during the year, it's a good time for them to happen now rather than the middle of January. So we'll deal with it, and it's not the end of the world, because we've, like I said to begin today, that we feel good about our depth, and it's allowing us to see some other players in extended minutes.
You guys are in a interesting situation with where Rockford is geographically, in that you take obviously the MAC, and then you take your non-conference opponents in Ohio very seriously with the teams that are on your schedule, but you also are able to work in good teams from Indiana. How much does being able to see just that kind of what I would imagine gamut of styles help you throughout the course of the year when you get to the tournament, when you never know what you're going to see?
Yeah, the playing the Indiana schools is rather unique. They do things a little differently in Indiana than we do, but it's still great high school basketball and tradition. And I would say South Adams, who's on our schedule, who's a next door neighbor in Bern, Indiana, and Adams Central over in Monroe, Indiana. Those are a couple of our biggest rivalries. And we really enjoy going over there, and they enjoy coming over here, and it's turned into a really good atmosphere at those games, and they really do help prepare us. Back in 2019 and 20, it was a game that had been canceled over at Bern in South Adams, so we made it up on a Tuesday night, and we went over there. They had a really good team, and we had a really good team, and it was probably around February 10th or so. And we were rolling. We go over there, and I don't think it was ever close. They absolutely drilled us, and it really helped us adjust and to go back and look at the film and to make some adjustments. And next thing you know, we're in the regional finals and getting ready to play Columbus Grove, and we were able to get on a roll, and it really did help us to reevaluate where we were at the second week in February during the 1920 season. So it was a really good game, and so we struggled, and we reevaluated, and then we were able to get on a roll and make a nice run.
First of all, I'm impressed you hit it February 10th on the head. Second of all, I am still of the belief that we should have been able to find a blacktop somewhere and play that Grove Parkway game just to see maybe how that could have turned out.
Yeah, there's a lot of good storylines, and that we haven't really discussed. But Chris Sauter at Columbus Grove, he had called me and asked how we were handling it. We talked on the phone and said, we really don't know what we can do, what we can't do. And we kind of joked it was either that Thursday or Friday. I think it was a Friday. We were supposed to play that night, and things were getting shut down. And Chris called me, and we talked, and we just kind of joked about, let's just meet someplace and we'll play in Lima someplace, and then we'll know for the future, who would have won. And as we look back on that, it's tough to talk about, but it is what it is, and there were bigger things happening in high school basketball at those times.
Well, and it's still, though, it's the worst thing because there's absolutely nothing you can do. You can get all those same kids and you can, go play now, but it's not going to be the same thing, and you just kind of lose that moment, unfortunately, for those kids.
Yeah, you do. You lose the moment. It was such a good group of kids, and I'm sure Chris will say the same thing to you. When you talk to him about it, but we were of the belief that we were rolling. We were playing as good as we'd ever played together, and it was going to come down the last 2 minutes, and we were going to find a way to win it and go to state. And there's nobody that was associated with our team that year that wouldn't tell you the same thing. We weren't 100% sold that we were going to upset Grove and go to state, but that's I'm sure they thought the same thing. They were destined. They were undefeated. They were ranked number one in the state, but we just felt that we were rolling, and we had never played better basketball.
That will forever be a game that I was supposed to do that I wonder how it turns out. But you've got a lot of games coming up, again, with heavy hitters throughout the course of the year. I hope you get healthy, and I hope you guys are able to produce some big things this season.
Yes, I think we will. I think, like I said, I really like our depth, and the schedule, is going to be tough, but it will prepare us for each game, and we'll be ready to go.
That's the head coach of the Parkway Panthers. We've got some more on the way. New Bremen basketball on tap now as we chat with the head coach and Cory Stevens. Nice enough to spend some time with us coming off of a 16-8 season a season ago. Does it feel like with the end of football season that waiting to get your guys takes forever?
Oh, yeah. And then the guys you got in the gym, it's trying to make it interesting with them and competitive with them, that it's not, they stay engaged too.
How often do you have to jump in there, though, and, show them how to hoop to make sure they didn't forget?
Well, I tried a couple years ago, and that didn't turn out well for me. So that's where we got some younger assistant coaches. They volunteer quicker than me, so they're in.
Well, I was noticing that, and that was one thing I was going to ask about, because I saw that you've got guys who really, it feels like not that long ago, were playing for you.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Clausen, he still plays, and then our freshman coaches this year, Coach McEldown and Coach Lageman, they're young and they're still active, so they jump in when given the chance.
It feels weird having covered those, I want to say kids or guys now, that it feels weird to hear coach attached to their name for me.
Yeah.
It's just kind of an oddity. Yeah, you get that. As it stands right now, Keith Utnor visits on December the 1st. I'm sorry for you. Before you get blocks where you go 4 straight away, 4 straight home. That's That's weird to start a season. I realize it rotates and all, but it's just an odd way to get it done.
Yeah, we just kind of play the hand that's dealt, and we get on the road early, play on the road, and then it's nice around the holidays, be able to come back home and have that 4 stretch of home games at home around Christmas time and the start of the new year.
When you look at kind of how last season ends, you have that big winning streak after you lose just 2 straight heartbreakers, a triple overtime, and then regular overtime. I mean, you play so well, and then to fall in the districts to Wapak or at Wapak to St. Henry, I would think had to be a little heartbreaking because of that upswing you had been on.
Yeah, I mean, we were playing well, and then when you get to the tournament, if you don't bring it every single night and play your best, it's hard to win. And when the ball's not going in, we talk about the little things that might not show up in the paper, but it's going to help win games, in the tournament, especially when it gets really competitive.
What was the 4-day span for you like with those 2 Jackson Center games? Because obviously it's not a long bus ride because you're home against Jackson Center and Loramie. And I'm not trying to make too much, but I'm fascinated by kind of the human element of with you and the kids of they played their absolute hearts out and you lose in extra periods both nights.
Yeah, I mean, both of those games, we drew something up to try to get a shot, and then it was, okay, now let's look at something else. And so we took what we learned from the Jackson Center game and we kind of applied it to the, Fort Loramie game, and then made a plan for the tournament if that would happen as well. And that's what we told them at the end of games. They did play hard, but it's not the end of it. We got to focus on the rest of the season and then the tournament run as well. Put the spin on it. Yeah.
You've got a tremendous senior class, and then you've got 7 kids who have all played for multiple years, and you've got some juniors as well in that same category. It does not seem like that you're short on possible leaders for this year.
Yeah, I mean, we got 2 lettermen back that played a lot of minutes last year with Aaron Tiemann and Hayden Zeller. But then we got some other seniors that are stepping in that played a lot of basketball in the past, but also played in other sports, different roles. With Jackson Leonard, Keaton Putoff, Zach Wiedemann. You got some juniors with Grant Dickey, Rogan Muther. You got Owen Rendler Jr., Rylan Busia Jr., and then Henry Nelson, the senior. So, they've all played 4 years for us here. And then also they excel in other sports as well, whether it's the football, baseball, track, cross country, that sort of thing as well.
How much is that helpful in a way of you've got a lot of those kids that play all those sports together that you can kind of look at? One, you can obviously count on them to provide your leadership, but you don't really have to say a lot to them to get them hyped because they're so close and they all understand it.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the expectation, the standard. It doesn't matter what sport it is. We got to expect to win. That was a big thing that we pushed years ago, that, when you show up to a game, you should expect to not win and not hope to win. Just that different attitude and that mentality. So we've been pushing that, and it's across the board in all sports, just not basketball. So that kind of helps with that leadership, that they know the standard and the expectation going into it.
I know the obvious answer is Audubon because it's the next one, but is there a game that you just absolutely look forward to that's on your schedule?
We got a lot of them. I mean, it starts with Audubon. The first game of the year, it's a home game for us, so it's good to start at home. Kids are getting excited. But then, I mean, you look at, every game, there's been within a 4-year span, very competitive one way or the other. And so it's like, I'll remember that from way back when, and kind of sticks with them, and they can kind of recall and refer back to it when need be.
Are you guys an honorary member of the WBL at this point?
I don't know. It seems like it with all the WBL schools we play, and then even the scrimmaging, we scrimmage a lot of the WBL schools as well. With proximity, it's easy to jump on 75 and head north.
I kind of feel like, and I joked with Keith Utendorf about this, that he's obviously coming from the opposite direction, but that we should figure out how to make some kind of Route 66 Classic, because it seems like all of you guys up and down 66 are playing each other anyways. We might as well, try to do something with that.
Oh, it'd be great. A little tournament atmosphere, over the holidays or something like that. It'd be a good competition too.
Right, because you guys don't have enough things to worry about over the holidays.
Right.
What is it about this team as you kind of look at the composition? You've had them together for a little bit now that you're most looking forward to see how they mesh, and what don't people know that they'll soon find out about this Cardinal squad?
The one thing I'm looking forward to is just they're new kids, so they bring different talents to the table, with two lettermen back, but these other guys, the other guys played a lot of ball and had success there last year. So just seeing, them grow throughout the season, some of them their first year playing varsity basketball from the start of the year to the end of the year. That's what I'm looking forward to the most as far as the growth over the year with them.
Well, I hope you guys have a big year, and I can't thank you enough for doing this.
Yep. Hey, thank you for all you do.
That's Cory Stevens talking about Bremen basketball. We're back in just a minute. A little further south in Versailles, talking about Tiger basketball. This is going to be an interesting conversation with the head coach and Travis Swank, because as you'll learn, about 4 or 5 different coaches, especially on the boys' side, have not a lot of team right now. And as I understand it, having no team makes it kind of hard to practice. Is that right?
Yeah, it makes it a little bit difficult to run your practices, but we're kind of used to this here, and we actually have worked out a system with our football coaches where we actually get our freshmen for 2 days a week, and we will get them on Mondays and Saturdays. So on those 2 days, we actually have a little bit of a bigger squad to do a little bit more. But from Tuesday through Friday, we're down to around 11 players. So we are able to go up and down and do some 5-on-5 work. So that's nice to have at least that number of kids. But it's just not the same. You're constantly trying to create energy and try to make it loud in the gym like it would be if we had all 32 of our players in there, which we don't right now. But, you play the cards that you're dealt and you do the best that you can.
So basically what you're saying is you have just enough kids that you yourself don't have to suit up and be part of practice.
Yeah, I'm going to be hitting the 40 mark here in February. My playing days are over with, I think. I have some younger coaches on staff, and if we need somebody or if somebody is sick or goes down, we'll throw those guys in there before they throw me in there anymore.
I always asked Nick Fisher about that at Coldwater, and I said, we put you in there in a coach's sort of game. He said, what are you going to do? He said, well, probably sit on the bench with my knee braces on, but maybe I might post up on the low block and then just stay there the whole game. So you're not going to play defense? He said, well, that's fine. He said, you're big enough.
He's a lot bigger. He'd probably be in the post. I'm not going to go into the post. I'm going to try to outshoot him, I guess, is what I would probably do. But that'd be my go-to. And then probably not run back on defense either. So
you just got like one guy who goes back and forth on each side,
Right.
He's like flag football. Yep. He's the all-time quarterback. You got one guy handling the ball, and everybody else is just in their spots.
Yep. That's probably what a lot of us coaches are going to do at this point in our playing career. So
it would be kind of fascinating, though, to kind of see with all of the coaches and everybody sort of an alpha in a lot of ways of who's drawing up the plays, who's executing the play, and kind of how does that end?
Yeah, that would be. I mean, maybe you could get that together and we have like a coach's like 5-on-5 tournament or something like that and see what ended up happening. So I'd be interested to see what that looks like, especially we have a lot of good coaches around this area. We got a lot of coaches that were pretty good former athletes as well. So it would be kind of interesting to see that. Maybe you can get that going somewhere and see what it turns out to be like.
Well, I think just by looking at your schedule of you having to take on the opposing coach, maybe in a game to 5, I mean, you've got, I would love to see you and Dan Hegemeyer in January battling it out.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he can probably still shoot it pretty well. So if it's horse or pig, it might be a good game. But, I know he used to be a pretty good player. And it'd probably be fun for all the fans to watch as well. So it'd probably be an interesting matchup, that's for sure.
I can imagine you pitch that to Eric Rosenbeck. He's probably just going to look at you and then just walk away.
I'm not sure. He was a good player, too, back in the day at Rushi. So I'm sure he's competitive. He would probably want to do something as far as that goes. But to go out there and show what he can do, because he, like I said, I didn't quite play against him during this time period, but I remember going to games at that time in my life as a junior high kid. And, he was one of the better players around in the Southwest and Northwest type of area.
I mean, I think it'd be great because you got Mike McClurg, you got Aaron Elwer. I mean, they were all ballers in their day. I'd pay to see that, but then everybody get mad. Where do you have it? Well, the OHSA would want their cut, and I just don't want to deal with all that.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe we'll just let it be. So we'll just stick to coaching.
It's just a fantasy thing, I guess. Big hitters for you throughout the course of your lineup, obviously with your league and then your non-league to help you get ready for the tournament. You have one particularly interesting stretch to me towards the end of the season where you have 5 of 6 away games ending January and into early February. You go to Minster, you go to St. John's, you go to Russia. You come back home to get Coldwater. Then you go to Knoxville and Anna. I mean, there's not really a stretch where you can breathe easy on your lineup. And then especially depending on obviously what gets moved and where it ends up going, of having big hitters early on in your lineup while you're kind of trying to still find your team.
Yeah, I mean, we always try to have as strong a schedule as what we can here. We just believe in that it prepares you for the tournament time. Of course, our conference, we really feel like the Midwest Athletic Conference, just like in football, does as well. Basketball prepares you to be ready when it comes tournament time. We don't have, in our conference, a lot of nights where we can, take a night off because everybody's going to give you your best shot. The teams are well prepared. They're well coached. So we just know within our conference that we're going to have tough games. And then we also try to schedule a really, tough non-conference schedule. We try to get different types of styles in our non-conference a little bit more. We still go up north to see some of that, physicality that we're going to see in our conference. But then, we have a team like a Dayton Ponitz down on our schedule this year, and it's very up-tempo. It is fast. It's a lot of trapping. It's a lot of full court type of stuff because with the direction that we go with our tournament going down the Southwest and, some of the success that we've had in the past, we've had to play some of those bigger Cincinnati schools, and that's kind of the style that they bring to the table. So we got to be accustomed to both ends of it because we see so many drastic styles throughout the year.
I love getting to do Versailles basketball because I haven't actually gotten to come down there because, living in Findlay, it's pretty far. But getting to see you guys on the road, I love that no matter where you go, it feels like everybody just packs up and says, this is Tuesday, this is Friday, this is Saturday, whatever it may be. Hey, make sure Grandma's got, dinner in the microwave and her lights turned on and Matlock on there. But we're going to take everybody else in the town and go invade someone else's gym. That's got to be a cool road atmosphere.
We're very fortunate at Versailles to have such a good following. I think in our boys and girls program, we get, not just parents coming to the games, but we got people that have not a kid in the program. And we have a lot of regulars that do not have a kid in the program, and they're at every single game, whether, it's at Russia, which is right, 3 minutes away, or, last year we went all the way up to Indian Lake was, I think, our furthest road trip. So we had those regulars that were still there. So it's always nice to have that. Kids love playing in big time environments. So having a good crowd that supports us and is there to be at all of our games just gets our kids that much more hyped up to go out there and play well.
When you look at the difference between last year and this year, you miss obviously a pretty big piece, quite literally, in Connor Stonebreaker. Yeah. How you don't really replace a guy like that, but how do you sort of try to reload that position?
Yeah, and that's kind of how we've looked at it. Connor is, the 2-time MAC Player of the Year. He did a lot of good stuff for us the past 2 years. And it's like you said, it's going to be really hard to replace what he did. So, we're going to try to supplement with not just one player like Connor was, but maybe, 2 to 3 other guys can pick up his slack and replace that, what he brought to our team last year. So, we have some pieces for our team that we think that will be able to step in, and they won't be Connor Stonebreaker, but, they're going to be who they are. And I think we're going to use those pieces as best as we can. And hopefully, we can have just as much success as what we've had in the past when we've had Connor and other guys around him as well. So we got, a guy like senior. We got Carson Heitkamp, who hasn't played a whole heck of a lot of varsity basketball, who we're going to be looking at to do that. He's about 6'4", 6'5". He's not quite the 6'8" that Connor was, but he's really athletic. But he just needs that time and experience to fill those big shoes. But I think he's going to be up for the challenge.
Well, I cannot say thank you enough for spending some time talking about your program, and I hope things go well. And even in that crazy, hey, we start everything a week before everybody else tournament run that you are going to have a big year of.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
That's a look at Versailles basketball some more in just a couple of minutes. Sticking with the Midwest Athletic Conference, talking to, I believe, the dean of the conference now, in Eric Rosenbeck, the head coach at St. Henry. Is that accurate? I feel like you have to be the longest tenured coach.
Young Mr. Elwer. Young Mr. Elwer was ahead of me.
Oh, that's true.
Up at Delta St. John's. Yep. He's got me by 2, maybe 3 years, I think.
I guess I just feel like he's younger. Not that you're older, just I just feel like he doesn't age.
He's a lot faster than I am. I learned that in the Minster Oktoberfest 10K when he smoked me by about 4 minutes. So he's a lot faster. So
he's actually yet to come on this show, so I'll have to ask him that.
Ask him how many he's at. Yeah, I think he's 2 years ahead of me as far as I think I'm in year. I think it's my 15th year. And I think he's got, this would be his 17th, my guess, something like that.
So he's 2 years and about 100 people in front of you.
that's well, probably even more than that, sadly, and he doesn't let me hear the end of it, but I at least beat Goettemoeller, so that makes me feel better.
I probably should move away from this. I already spent 5 minutes with one of the coaches saying I would like to see a Shelby County MAC coaches basketball clinic and just see all of you guys play, and there was some respect for you, and I said you would probably just laugh at the concept and just walk away.
There's no chance I'd play. I'd sprain an ankle in the first play down. I would play no defense and sit around and shoot bad 3-pointers. I will do a Shelby County versus MAC 10K race off because we have Elwer, and that dude's like a bolt of lightning.
Now you're just trying to cheat.
Even though he's like 45 years old.
Well, I think that the coaches game with all the cherry picking and nobody playing defense, it wouldn't be any different than an NBA game.
Yeah, it'd be like an all-star game. There you go.
Aaron is, by the way, he is in his 17th year.
I thought so.
At St. John's, and then the 2 years at Bradford. So,
make sure you tell him that I accidentally told him that he's just so old and he just needs to give it up at some point, being that old.
He may or may not listen to this podcast. I'm really not sure how that's going to go. You've got kind of a fascinating kind of a see and say, with a lot of obviously the MAC success and with the run that the football team goes on that. Maybe a lot of people didn't think early on, but I've got to believe that you have a lot of those same kids that you had that belief of, okay, they're good enough, they're great athletes, this is the kind of team that could turn something around, and then they go on that big run, and all of a sudden your game plan probably for your practices totally changes.
To a degree, but also not, because we have by far the most I've ever had to earn in football. We got five of our main guys, maybe possibly even our entire starting five after we get everybody up and going that were playing with us. So it would actually be both sports. A lot of our dudes played baseball last year, like Beckman and Link and Evan Bowers and Devin Delside, et cetera. So with their baseball success and then a lot of those same guys are playing football as well, as you just mentioned. And then returning, we're hoping for a big year.
You come off that 14-12 year, you guys losing the district finals. I know it's frustrating, obviously, because it's Marion local. You're in that stacked district, which Goettemuller's got a whole theory on how the Northwest District needs to get with the times. But, are
Kurt's
you
a smart man? Don't let anybody tell you differently.
Are you on that train of, things are kind of, you look at the way that seating was done last year, you look at the Max Preps thing, you look at kind of how the Southwest District does it. Is it some amalgamation of those things, or is it there's maybe one specific thing that you feel like would be the best?
Well, I guess for me, like if it's my little world and I get to control it, which there's so many more factors beyond my realm of existence. But if it's me, yeah, you open it up. The only district that does it the way that they do is our district. And there's a lot of factors in there, travel. There's more schools in the Northwest than anywhere else. But ultimately, I know the powers that be want the best teams to advance. And to me, if you open it up, and let people cross district, there's a lot of different formats that could work. I think that would be best. With that being said, MAC basketball is not where like MAC volleyball is or MAC football is. Like, Crestview won state, got to state last year, et cetera. So it's not like if this would happen that I would think it's like, oh, we're opening up the floodgates for the MAC to dominate or something like that, because like Patrick Henry this year is loaded. They're going to be a ton. Antwerp is really, really good. I'm more in the camp of like, are we doing what's best for the kids and the people that have worked the hardest? And if there's a format that can be better, that gets the best teams the furthest, that's great. And for somebody like me, I might be eating it because maybe we're playing Patrick Henry earlier than we ever would, and they're beating us, and we're like, gosh dang, I wish we had not seen those guys until the regional finals. But ultimately, I'm the camp of you make your own luck, you earn it, hard work, talent, all those things, and I want the best teams to move forward. And it seems like everywhere else in the state, they're opened up, and the best teams do advance. And if you get upset, then that happens in sports, it happens in life, and you learn from it. So that's a little probably longer answer than needed, but that's kind of where I'm at on the whole situation.
I was told that if anybody had enough stroke to get something done, specifically that it would be you. So there's a lot of guys out there who believe in the power of the Rosenbeck.
Well, those people are we'll try to do it. But again, like that's my little like there's nothing saying that I'm right. Like the one thing that I do like is I like an open debate, and I like to hear both sides. Like I've told anybody, and hopefully the good folks of St. Henry know this, like if I was a politician, I'd be known for flip-flopping because I don't stand
so you'd be any politician.
Yeah, exactly. But like if somebody proves their argument to me, then I'm like, oh, well, that's a better thought process than I had. So, yeah, I think it's worth exploring, but ultimately these are really good teams. And if you want to do what you're trying to do, you have to beat really good teams. And the last 2 years we got knocked out by our neighbors to the east, and they're going to be good again this year, and we'll see what happens, and we're going to keep grinding and working to get better.
Couple of the guys that I talked to that had very high remarks about you as a competitor and as a person told me some amazing stories about some battles that they've had with you. One of those guys is your first opponent in Kevin Sensabaugh at Spencerville, who just obviously thinks the world of you. Are those kind of games fun with guys that obviously you have a huge respect for, but that, the way, as long as you've been at St. Henry, I mean, he's been at Spencerville now forever and a couple of years after that you have that respect, but that you're going to be good, they're going to be good. It's just a matter of who gets out of the gate first.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, everything you said, you nailed. Kevin's a really, really good coach. He knows his X and O's as well as anybody. A fantastic offensive coach, and yeah, I do have all the respect in the world. And I know with talent, maybe with not as much talent, doesn't matter. Like we better be ready to go the opening night, and that's the type of test we want, though, to get ready for MAC play, for league play, et cetera. And this year, he's his own son with the Austins. With Sidoff. I mean, they got some dudes, and I think we got some dudes. And it's one of those that I really feel like in the year 2023, 24, 25, moving forward, that basketball just doesn't kind of officially start for some people until January, when football kind of wraps up with all the success in small school football in this area. And And this is one of those games that I love starting with to kind of see where we're at the same point. I wouldn't mind it being game 17, game 18, and you look at the records and hopefully both teams are doing really well and competing and trying to get ready for tournament play. So, yeah, he does a great job, and I do love going against him and have the utmost respect for everything he does with his program.
Well, the crazy thing is, because of the way the last handful of years has gone with football, whether it be their success or your success, that, this has been a kind of a game where it's all right, we're maybe going to have to move this game, but it stays where it is. And then you go in an 8-day span, you get them, you get Rushi, you go to Versailles, you go to Shawnee, where it's, hey, thanks, Dad. Could you have given me anything easy to work on for the first couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, and that's true. At the same point, like, you want to lace them up, and our kids are hungry, and they won't want any other way. And we even kind of talked as football was going, if we were able to knock off the Tigers to the south of us, if what we want to do, and the guys we have are like, we want to play. Like, we've been doing off-season stuff, and we've been doing prep, and we've been doing this. Like, we want to. And I'm like, well, I'm the same. So let's roll the ball out and compete, and let the chips fall where they may. So. But with that being said, if we're not ready, you're exactly right. We're staring down the barrel of 1-3, 0-4, and I think we have a pretty dang good team. So we better be ready these first few weeks of the season.
And kind of an oddity that you end your regular season on a Monday night at home against Bath.
Yeah, it just goes back to and it's just a lot more complex. And I'm sure somebody from OHSA would tell me I don't get it. And I would be like, you're right, I don't. But I don't understand why we can't at least force, like we do in football, that everybody plays at the same time. The Southwest District always starts earlier than we do. And so then Versailles, who's in our league, we can't play that last league game, so they have to get rotated up to the front. And I'm like, can we just start the tournament the same for everyone? Is that allowable? And I know why not, because then we're taking away from the districts, and the state runs the regional and the state tournament. But at the same point, I think there should be the ability to say, hey, the first tournament game is going to be February the 16th for everybody. Nobody's going to start on February 11th, and the next people start the week of the 18th. It's really hard for me to swallow for all of us schools that are on these lines, and there's just not many of us that exist. And so there's probably not enough boys for anyone to really care, but schools that are on these Southwest, Northwest District lines or Southeast Central lines, it can be frustrating because you're trying to figure out when people are going. You have to move around schedules. So that's the reason it is. And so then we have to, thankfully, Bath has been fantastic, and they'll play us on a Monday night just to try to get one more game that last week before tournament starts.
Well, and then there's the whole odd thing that you go through, and if you get through the Wampauck District, you have to go all the way to Fairmont to play anyways. So you kind of backhandedly join the South District.
Yes, and that all depends too. So the last few years we've been moved up to the north, and then there's been years like when we went to state in 19 that we went through the south. So we've been on both sides of that coin. But yeah, like when we go to the south, and like scouting and stuff turns into a big time challenge, and who has the advantage or doesn't have the advantage can be debated, but it is what it is. The thing I don't like about it is as soon as someone like myself tries to acknowledge that this situation exists, a lot of folks will then say, oh, they're just whining. And it's like, can I make a comment without sounding like I'm whining? And I don't think I can, Michael. So we'll just leave it at that.
I mean, I understand it, and it's one of those weird things where I feel like I could do it an hour of just having you and Kurt in a room and kind of just going back and forth about this. But I know other people, like you said, oh, he's just complaining. He doesn't have a good enough team to worry about that or whatever. No, I mean, he has a good enough team that he is worried about it, because it's what I'm planning on doing in February and March.
Well, if you had me and Goettemoeller in a room, we'd talk about basketball for about 6 minutes, then we'd probably talk about the Browns for 54. So I don't know if you want that conversation or not.
I mean, I'm a Cowboys fan, so if you add Eric Goodwin in there and he and I we can kind of cross talk, then I think it'll be all right.
Yeah, 10-4, I got you.
I heard a story recently that you're kind of notorious where you don't necessarily like to use timeouts, but I heard a story one time that you were so frustrated that you used 4 timeouts in a quarter, and then we're not very happy about that.
Yeah, that's probably true. I don't know what game that would be, but I'm sure it is. We've been on all gamuts of that. That might have been last year. I didn't want to lose our guys because I knew they were good, and I was like, we got to keep them. We got to stay as long as we can. So we've been on all sides of that coin. We've gone years where I said we're not calling the timeout. We want to get this thing going up and down. Even if we're down on a 9-0 run, stick with it because we got the pace going how we want. But the other years where we've called timeouts all 5 in the first half just to try to prolong the game, to try to keep the guys from taking a beating from, like, like when we played Lima Shawnee a couple of years ago, they were just stacked and we were not. I think I used all 5 timeouts in like the first, 6 minutes of the first half, because it's like we're trying to negate this from turning into a bloodbath, and it ended up being a bloodbath anyway. So, yeah, we'll kind of use timeouts however we think is best for the team, the guys we have, and for this year's team, we got a lot of veteran guys that have played, and we want to get up and down. So we'll probably be a little bit more reserved in calling them and hold them more toward the end. And hopefully that works out well for us. But yeah, we usually actually have a strategy or philosophy behind our timeouts and their usage.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take them home with you, so you might as well go ahead and use them.
There you go.
A friend of mine told me that years ago, and I thought it was the funniest thing. I said, I never thought of it in that context. He said, they don't fit on the bus.
No, they do not.
This season, you kind of touched on it a little bit about the MAC and kind of a little bit about what you expect. With the way you fit in, you expect maybe you and Marion local, the two up near the top?
Oh, man, I think there's 7 or 8 teams, because Cam Elwer is that good at Delphus that I believe that he could single-handedly keep Delphus hanging around for a MAC title. I believe Steffi and Cole Richards, along with Albers, and the rest of those young guys that they have at Minster, could just jump right in there. I think that Zeller and team at New Bremen can fill it up and beat anybody on a given night. And I could go on and on throughout the whole MAC. But yeah, like Parkway had us dead to rights last year. And they got some dudes, and Coldwater's got a very, very good junior class that beat our butts at our home gym. So, yeah, us and Marion, I think we'll be right there. But to say like clear cut in any shape or form, I don't know if that's true. I hope it is. That would be awesome for us. But those teams are good. And we're going to have to be ready for them every single Friday, which is what you want. It's fun. It's more competitive. It's more entertaining. It's all those things.
And then, of course, you have a handful of teams that just kind of don't quit, that come to you throughout the course of the year. I mean, Salina visits. Obviously, we talk about Bath. I mean, you get Audubon, who's got about every kid in the school, I believe, who was on that team, despite the fact that they missed 16 of them for soccer. And they have a decent coach in Keith Utendorf, but just don't tell him I said that. But I love those matchups. Just kind of something a little bit different. I mean, you wouldn't necessarily look at it and go, give me St. Henry and Audubon.
I mean, for us, I love what our athletic director's been able to do. Dennis has got us playing WBL and WC, SCL, Putnam County, and most of them are usually in the upper echelon of those leagues. And so sometimes it scars the overall record, because maybe we're not as strong as we've been on other years, but those games are fun, and you compete and you scrap and claw. And yeah, all those names you dropped will make us better. But with that being said, that's the reason why I like us winning 20 games this year and us winning 15 is razor thin, because if we're not ready on some of those nights, we're going down, and our kids need to know that, and us as coaches to make sure we prepare them to the best of our abilities.
I feel like sometimes that, because again, every coach that I talk to constantly says how they love you and they hate you, because they love how much you love the game, how it's infectious to you, but they hate you because, and we've talked about this before, how you'll come up with things that maybe they hadn't figured out that you were going to figure out. Is that kind of the most fun part for you of being able to look at a film or stats or however the scouting report is, and being able to break down an opponent to a thing that, all right, what can I do here to maximize my kids and put them in a spot to neutralize maybe a lot of the guys you were talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question and a great observation. To answer the question, the thing that I like or enjoy the most that keeps me like in coaching is practice. I cannot over exaggerate how much I love practice. And we got our football dudes back today, and I loved it. Like it was, I mean, it's just fun. It is awesome. Games are obviously what it comes down to, and that's the test. And I don't want to minimize those in any way, because obviously that's what you're there for. But breaking down film and doing all that is awesome. It's all part of the gig. But like for me, to answer your question, like what's like the driving force, what's the funnest part? Working with the kids on a daily basis, and that's the part. My wife kind of taught me that as much as anyone. Like if they get knocked out, the heartbreak is so bad, because you want to win, but more importantly, because like that's 3 less practices with that group. And that's the only time that group's ever going to be together again. And as I kind of learned that and learned to appreciate it, I'm in the same a couple of years ago, wanting to work with Bennett Gels and Jay Laney and Sam Kesters and Shane Frank right on down the line. Seth Heitkamp, those kids were awesome. And I would have loved to have practiced 5 more days with them. Last year to have John Hardings, who came out of nowhere to be one of my favorite players I ever coached, which I would have never anticipated when he was a freshman and sophomore, is just awesome. So that's what's the biggest driving force by a mile. And I think if there's ever a day that I dread going to practice, I'll probably know that maybe it's time for somebody else to grab the whistle. That's kind of how I look at it. Breaking down film and trying to give our kids the best chance to win. Sometimes I enjoy that, but sometimes I get too much credit on it, because you take somebody like Kurt, his kids know what their philosophy is. He knows they're going to dig in, they're going to grind, they're going to play defense. They got that as a backbone. Sometimes I feel like we're too wishy-washy. We jump from defense to defense or change offensive philosophies. We lose a little bit of our identity, and I think having an identity is so important. So there's a lot of ways to look at it, but with everything being said, like practice, being around the kids, like this year, I love hanging out with Evan Bowers. The dude's awesome. Caden Bergman, Logan Link, right on down the line, Bikey, Dusite Bex, Curtis, Dom, like our seniors are fantastic. And I'm rooting them for them like crazy. I want them to have a big year because they've done a lot of things right the last 9 months to get ready for this season.
I think that's always my favorite and least favorite thing, kind of to piggyback what we were talking about the tournament earlier, is all of those early rounds of seeing these kids in multiple sports, and the seniors especially, when you have a great team and you get knocked out by X or vice versa or however it goes, of man, that's the last time I'm going to get to see this kid play or whatever it is, and that's always, so I completely understand how you feel, because it's definitely something, for at least for me, kind of how you guys are being around them every day.
Yeah, there's been some times where we've had some district final games, like with Mike 715, we had to go up against LCC and had no other option, and they had that 4-year run where they were just awesome. We lost, and I'm tearing up in the background. Or in 18, I thought we had a really good team, but we had to go against Marion, who ended up being the state champs in the district finals, and we had our opportunities, and to be in the back and to be openly crying and teared up, it does sting. And then mostly, the loss stings, but I can still remember that locker room, not seeing Ryan Brady and Tyler Slarman and Parker Lincoln right on down the line, all those dudes, Curtis Hill and Hank, Luddy, they were such fun kids to be around. Heavy D, see them now thinking about it, it's like I miss that. And when I see them around or helping out with our program, that's awesome stuff. And they don't know, and they won't know until they get old enough like me to realize yeah, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool what's going on. So, yeah, that being at practice like today was, I thought Timmerman, our varsity assistant, and Justin Ehlers, who graduated from us in 15, helping us with coaching. I thought they killed it. They were so good with the kids, and that was so much fun. And being a principal, sometimes you don't. A lot of times, the things that go across the principal's desk aren't exactly positive. It's things that are problems and trying to put out fires. So you get to practice and get to just compete. Man, I appreciate it more now than ever.
Well, I always enjoy these conversations, and I'm so thankful that you're able to spend some time with me.
No, absolutely. I like doing this stuff as well, and yeah, we're hoping for a big season, and we're going to keep competing to try to get better every day.
That's Eric Rosenbeck, the head coach at St. Henry. We've got more from the MAC in just a couple of minutes. Continuing on with the MAC, and I had to put this right after we just talked to Eric Rosenbeck because you heard what he said about Devil St. John's head coach Aaron Elwer, and he's got a lot of theories, and it makes me think that you guys must just be a riot when you're together.
Yeah, and he leads that riot. Coach Rosenbeck and I think we have a really good relationship, and of being around for a long time and having a lot of good contests and good battles on Friday nights against each other. And Coach Rosenbeck is sure fun to talk with games and obviously outside of the season whenever we see each other for sure.
When he talks about your program, he obviously goes specifically to Cam, and he has a high respect for Cam, and he actually remarked about how he feels that you guys are obviously infinitely better because of just how his maturation is and how he fits in your system. He's not too bougie to kind of do everything that you need. How neat is that as not only the coach of, yeah, I have that guy we can ride, but to see the hard work of your son not only paying off, but people just having a massive amount of respect for him?
Yeah. No, thanks for Coach Rosenbeck saying that about, our program and Cameron. The accolades individually that Cameron has received have been well earned and justified. With him obviously being my dad aside, the amount of work that he puts into his craft daily, sometimes twice a day, and throughout the year, in season or out of season is really something that as the head coach is something truly special, and is a great mentor for Ellie in our program. Anytime you talk about sport, athletics, or anything, you talk about hard work and process, and you want people like that in your business or in your program. And Cameron has done that, and he's done that since such a young age. And as he plays, I've always told him, coach, try to make the right play. And he tends to do that. Whether that's us needing a basket or him making a play for someone else, or him guarding the other team's best player, willing to do all those things. And that gives us a great chance to win on any given night. And I think it's great for our guys to see him wear different hats and have so many roles for us, for sure.
I asked a handful of coaches that have had that relationship, and not to go too deep on this, but I personally find it fascinating, of having their kids on the team. And obviously I talked to Kevin Sensabaugh, and he talks about having one and now having two of his sons. How are you able to kind of compartmentalize that? Is it just when you leave the hallway at St. John's, it goes back to, okay, I got to make that kid do the laundry and not think about it in basketball?
Yeah. Coach Sensabaugh we both have sons the same age. We now have Andrew. Andrew will be a freshman for us as well. So that will be a completely aspect as well. Now we have two sons in the program. But I tried to do my research before I got to be at the high school level and coaching your sons. And I talked to coaches who had been through this situation of coaching their son. And really, it basically came down to try to leave all basketball things on the court, in the office, here at school. And that's really what I've tried to do. It's sometimes difficult for sure. But really once we leave and we do talk basketball, but really don't get into specifics. I try to then be their dad. I don't like to talk about athletics and obviously basketball, but I try to leave emotions, good or bad, at home and something I think about daily in order to take the difference away from being a dad and a coach.
Last year, you guys had just an absolute banger of a game with Crestview. You come out on the wrong end of that. But when you set for that district, you know that you're going to be in for a fight to win that thing. I mean, you pretty much enter yourself a part of the NWC, a little bit of PCL, and you just know, I mean, teams that are close to you, is there any kind of advantage to that, or is it a hindrance that a lot of those teams are a second time around?
Yeah, you look at it both ways. It, like you alluded, the district is so difficult every year. One, it's a blessing to get there, have the opportunity to play in it, and then potentially win it is a great deal for your program. We do a lot of scouting, so we think that's one of our strengths. So getting an opportunity to potentially play some place that there are advantages with that. Like we know teams really well, so we see it as a positive. On the flip side, they know us very well, so that's a negative as well. So I mean, you could go back and forth in terms of it being a positive, negative, knowing each other so well. At the end of the day, there's going to be 4 teams in that Elida district that know each well. You're going to have to play well those nights to give yourself a chance to win. And we hope, again, as we did last year, give ourselves an opportunity to get in that district and hopefully playing on that night.
Your last 4 games last year with Marion, Lincoln View, PG, and Crestview is a fascinating sort of swatch of the coaching fraternity in Northwest Ohio because, I mean, all those guys have been around. You've had battles with them. But what is that like as a kind of a person where right before the game, I mean, those are 4 terrific guys that you got to stand across from and have a conversation that I know from talking to them that holds you in a high regard.
Yeah, just coaching in general is a unique fraternity. We have coaches meetings, we have district meetings, we have state clinic meetings. We'll go to the state tournament, and you meet so many different coaches. And obviously you see the coaches that you coach against or very well because we're close in proximity. Like I said, it's a unique fraternity, and until you're a head coach, you truly don't get that relationship, understand the daily things that go into being a head coach. And there are so many great coaches in our area, and so many great guys that I've got to know over my tenure here that it's really at the top of one of the things that I enjoy doing, because just to talk to them and to see the way they go about their business, how they handle their programs, is as I try to constantly to be a learner and to do different things and become a better coach that I can take from those guys. It's unique, and it is to be a head coach. It's cool to coach, and to be around such good guys and good coaches makes it even a little bit more fun each time that we have discussions.
Well, and again, it was recently pointed out to me that you've been in the MAC for quite a few years. Again, for people who don't know, Eric Rosenbeck wanted me to make sure that I pointed out that you are the longest tenured coach in the MAC and that it's not him.
Yeah, and that's good for Coach Rosenbeck. I'm glad he's looking out for me and letting everybody know that. But it's cool. Like, it doesn't get you anything other than the fact that I've had a lot of support here at Adelphia St. John's, both in the community and administration wise. We've had good players. We've had good teams. It is a great conference to be a part of. After playing in it and now being a head coach in it for 17 years, I will change it. It is a unique conference, a highly competitive conference. And I'm glad that we are a part of it, and I'm glad that I've been a part of it for this long, for sure.
I will say, though, I'm always liking to ask coaches what's changed during your tenure, but I know that there's one big thing that a lot of people look at immediately, and that is the fact that last year you guys played Delphos Jefferson. Now you have to make a long trek across town in December to play them. I mean, it'll take longer to warm the buses up, I think. But how does that come about that for years there's been this big thing in Delphus about, St. John's doesn't want to play Jefferson, or Jefferson and St. John's, whatever, in a handful of sports. And now all of a sudden there's kind of a coming together in the last year or so.
Yeah, I think it's been such a good thing. Like you said, we have played in so many different sports, and we haven't, in football and boys basketball. Then a few years ago, the football teams played, and I can go back to remembering that first night and both sides having such great attendance. Just right. It was the right thing for our community. It was the right thing for our kids. And that was a great night. And obviously Coach Jenninghoff and I started to talk and communicate, and we wanted to get this figured out. And we both got on board, and last year was the first year for that. And again, it was here in the Robert A., and there was two great crowds. Both teams played really, really hard. As you want to say, a little bit of a rivalry game, obviously, but, it was good. And this year, we go there, and I know our guys will look forward to it. It's over Christmas break, and to play there, which will be the first time that I've ever coached there, in that different venue for sure. Our guys will be excited, and I know we are. I know our community is. And again, hopefully, we play well when we visit those guys.
I know cart, horse, all that, but I'm fascinated by being able to look ahead. You're thinking about Van Wert on December 2nd, I'm sure, but I'm thinking about February, and you've got back-to-back nights where you play home, ironically, the way this works out, against Eric Rosenbeck and St. Henry, and then you go the next afternoon to play at OG against Dayton Dunbar. What's the mindset for those kind of games? I mean, do you set all of your game plan for St. Henry that week, or do you do a little bit for Dunbar?
Yeah, great question. What a great weekend for us in our program. We feel that we're in a good spot. We like where we are, the experience we have back. We feel that we've got a chance to be at the top of our league, and so will St. Henry. They have everybody returning. We're fortunate to be home that night. And all of our prep will obviously be for them. And we hope that late in the year that game means something, to both of us. So all of our prep will be on them. That Saturday we had Coach McLaughlin at OG reach out to us about playing in their Winter Classic, which is a great opportunity for our program. And he tries to get, there'll be 4 games, 8 teams, and tries to get teams that, from different parts of the state that should have a successful season. And so we accepted, and we got paired with Dayton Dunbar, which is a Division I school. And, we went back to June, and our guys have been challenged against big teams to give our guys that experience. So we won't flip the page to Dayton Dunbar until that next morning. But that will create a huge opportunity for us, a huge challenge, but it's also something that, it's a different style of play that our guys don't get to see a lot. So it'll be a great opportunity for us to continue to grow and get us ready for the tournament.
That'll definitely be a different 24 hours of the way St. Henry plays and the way Dunbar plays.
Right. Yeah. 2 different styles of play. And, we talk about getting ready for the tournament and different styles of play. At some point, we want to make a tournament run, and if you do, you're gonna have to play against different styles, and no more than that weekend that will give us those 2 different opportunities.
Yeah, you go from that to pretty much blunt force trauma with your last 2 games with Coldwater, Marion local. We're gonna have some bruises probably after those games.
Yeah, it's a long season, and then you look at the end of our schedule; it doesn't do us any favor. But, by then, obviously our guys will be in shape. We'll understand what it takes. And again, we hope that things are on the line those nights. And we look forward to those challenges and opportunities.
Well, I'm doing that Dunbar game, and I'm excited to see you guys. I'm sad that I have to wait so long the way the schedule works out. But I can't say enough. A lot of people have high hopes for you guys, and I wish you the best of luck.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having us on, and hopefully we can talk throughout the year.
Darren Elwer, the head coach at St. Henry, the well-tenured head coach, the dean of the MAC. We've got more in just a couple of minutes. Midwest Athletic Conference basketball now of the blue and gold kind. It's talking about the Marion local Flyers, and while they have success, continuing success on the football field, that gives head coach Kurt Goettemoeller a chance to reflect and kind of look at what he might have during the course of the year, and that's generally what we do. Kind of a great thing, but again, as always, the basketball guy is kind of standing there with his hands out, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's something we're used to this time of year. Certainly excited for our football team again. They got an opportunity to win another state championship. Big game this Friday, and so it's something we've gotten used to. It's a pattern we're able to scrimmage a few times here in November, guys we got, and bide our time. Hopefully we'll get our guys in here pretty healthy after football season and get going after about a week of practice.
You guys have been doing this for a while in that you've been having to move your schedule. Obviously, you don't start until the middle of December for your first game as it stands against Minster. How have other teams been? I mean, I know, you work with a lot of conference teams, obviously, but you've also got to move things, say, with Versailles, where they can't be in a certain spot, not only because of football, but because of the way that the Southwest District is. How have other schools kind of been working with you guys over the years?
Well, honestly, I have to thank a lot of the area schools. We've had, teams on our schedule like Wapakoneta, Hawkins here recently. Some of the legals, we have a rule that if you have to give the team 2 weeks to practice, still you appreciate those schools working with you as well to get the games rescheduled. Some have had to reschedule up to 5 games. Fortunately, this year, there's an extra week between football and basketball, so we already moved the Botkins games prior to the year starting, so we only ended up having 2 more games. The Wapakoneta game is going to be played on December 30th at 2 p.m. over there, and so we worked with them, and we had to work with Minster. I teach at Minster, so that was just a walk down the hall to Josh's office to kind of work that out. But no, like I said, I appreciate the area schools working with us because it's not easy, and then you have to find officials and workers. So certainly appreciate their help.
How did that work a couple of weeks ago since you opened the Minster door? Obviously, with teaching there and coaching at Marion, you just kind of laugh, or I mean, do you take guff for that? Of hey, what color are you wearing Friday night, or do they just pretty much know?
Yeah, obviously, they know I'm going to be pulling for my athletes. The basketball team, we met up with Minster last week in football in the playoffs, and it was a great game. And, I still love all those kids at Minster too. So the main thing was I wanted to stay healthy. But I've got a great relationship with everybody over at Minster. And, I'm lucky because I get to teach and coach at 2 of the best schools in the area. And so it's just been that I've gotten used to this. It's been 12 years now. I've been the head coach over at Marion, and so it's something that we've gotten used to over time.
I just always think that's a cool thing because, the kids can come in, hey, you don't root for us, like we understand, just kind of joking around with you, but obviously rooting for the kids themselves. And thank God there was no injuries in that game, but those are going to be big games. I mean, you come right out of the chute with Mike talked about how he's got obviously Cole Alber's back, and he's got kids that he feels like maybe it might take a little bit to mesh, but when they come together, that they should be a pretty good team. And one thing he kind of talked about, I want to ask you, he said that he feels like nobody will get through the MAC unscathed this year just because of what everybody has coming back and how good the conference is from top to bottom. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I think our conference is going to be terrific this year. 2 years ago, there was, a mix of teams, and we were fortunate enough to gain a share with Versailles and New Bremen. And last year, everybody probably pointed to us as being the favorites in the conference, ended up winning it. But this year, there is 5, 6, 7 good teams. You can go down the line. Our focus is really, the teams at the top of the conference, but also the teams in our district. We know St. Henry and Minster are going to be very, very good. Minster, they were 3-19 last year, and if they had Brogan Steffi last year, they would have won 10 to 12 games because he's that good. And so with him back and some of the other pieces they have, they're going to go on a 2 or 3 year run here of being very, very good. St. Henry's got everybody back. We played them in the district finals. Coach Rosenbeck does a great job. We've got teams like New Bremen and Fort Recovery because all those teams are in our district. So that's kind of who we focus on. But then you throw teams like Coldwater and Versailles, Delphus St. John's. I'm probably missing some schools, but it's going to be a very good conference this year, no question.
Last year, you have an interesting about week and a half because you give out some heartbreak, you suffer some heartbreak, and obviously there's a lot that kind of goes around the two games, the one that you won and the one that you lost. How are you able to look back at that now and kind of put last year in a box of, you know what, sometimes basketball happens to you and sometimes it happens against you?
Yeah, and that's true. We won a game against Fort Recovery. We defended a play at the end, and it could have went either way. It was a no call, and I'll be honest, that's how I would like to see referees referee the game at the end. I mean, if it's close, you got to make sure it's a foul, and we benefited that call. I thought Fort Recovery really played well against us that night, and we had Jack just back from injury, and it was a close game. We were lucky to survive that district semi. And we got through the district final against St. Henry and beat a solid team in Patrick Henry in the regional final, and then Crestview, and we were probably the best two teams in the region most of the year. We played really well early, but we just made a lot of mistakes in that game that allowed them to stay in the game, and then it came down to a couple calls at the end, one that got called and one that didn't get called, and if you sit there and point to that kind of stuff, you're doing a disservice to your kids because, in life, no matter what happens, whether it was fair or not, you got to learn to deal with adversity and deal with things that don't go your way. And we really just have to reflect back and say, hey, we had our opportunities to make that a different outcome and not have it be put in that position. And so you just have to move on. I mean, you learn from it, you grow from it. And hopefully if we get an opportunity to be in that position at some point in the future, we'll be better for it.
Well, I always think that that's such an odd thing. And, doing the game, no matter which side you're on, you're always wrong. Why'd you say this? Why'd you say that? You don't like our team, whatever. But for me, I always feel bad for the kids. Whoever loses that game, it doesn't matter who it is, whose kids they are, because it's not necessarily about that one play, oh, we got screwed or whatever. Okay, well, let's just say you shot 20 of 60 or 5 of 25 from 3 or whatever it is. It's that crazy thing of, yes, but it didn't come down to that. It came down to, we didn't do this, like you were saying, 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, the regional final is just probably the most pressure-packed game you can play in, even more than a state semi or a state final, just because you know what's on the line, just knowing, if you can win that game, get the opportunity to play at the state tournament, which is every kid's dream. And, honestly, I don't think I handled that situation real well. And I'm disappointed. We've been in that situation 5 times. That was the 5th time in the regional final, and we lost 4 of them. Fortunately, we did win the one, but, you just look back and you say, hey, if I get that opportunity again, these are some things that I can do maybe a little different. You have to be confident in those situations. And I just thought once we had gotten a big lead, we were up 17-4, and they came back and made a 3-point game at half. Most of the second half was a little bit tentative, and we got a kid in foul trouble in the fourth quarter, and that didn't help. But, you get credit to Crestview because they just kept hanging in, and then you get down to a situation at the end of the game where it was anybody's game, and they made the play. So you got to give them some credit as well.
You guys go back to play Tri-Village this year at the MLK Classic with Fort Loramie. How much different or how much fun, I guess, for both is an event like that in that you play on that Sunday, but, I mean, you guys also kind of went up the ladder of difficulty and turned it to like 50 because you play Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, and that's not ideal, but that's a little bit of a positive, getting late start to football and all those kind of things. We do play Friday against New Knox, Saturday at Van Wert, and then we play Sunday at 3. And, it's not ideal like I did, but the balance of that is we have 2 Saturdays off this year, which we never have. We're usually weekends for the whole year, Friday, Saturday. So this year there are 2 different Saturdays where kids maybe can get away from basketball a little bit. We can go out and scout a little bit. And so you kind of take the good with the bad in that regard. But that will be challenging because I know Trilogy will be very good. And so that'll be our third game in 3 days. But we're going to, roll them out there and see what we got that.
So there's no chance of date night. The date night becomes a basketball night.
Yeah, well, that's kind of like Sunday night. My biggest concern that weekend is if the Browns are in the playoffs, and I would have to potentially miss a Browns playoff game. That would be my biggest worry. But no, we're going to be okay. You just got to try to save legs where you can. You got to take care of your kids, and we might have to go into our bench a little bit deeper that weekend. But it'll be fine. I mean, our kids play a lot of games in the summer. Heck, they play 3 or 4 games in a day. So we'll be okay. You just have to be smart about how you handle their legs.
I can just see that from behind the benches where we sit to call those games. What is Kurt doing? He's got a phone in his hand. No, that won't work, actually, because nobody gets phone reception in Fort Loramie. I was going to say you could watch the Browns game on your phone while you're coaching.
Yeah, I don't know that would go very well, and I'm probably going to be focused on my number one team at that point. But yeah, it's a good problem to have, that's for sure.
Why does Kurt keep talking about kickoff coverage during his timeouts? He seems like he's preoccupied.
Yeah. I'm pretty much of a one-track mind, though. Once the basketball game starts, you got to be mentally focused. If you're not focused, you can't blame your kids for not being focused if you're not focused yourself. So you got to set a good example. So if that were to occur, I would definitely not worry about the Browns game at that point.
Well, I mean, you're probably just going to suffer heartbreak anyways, and this is coming from a Cowboys fan. I'm not allowed to talk about the playoffs.
Right, I get it. Yeah, no, we've been suffering a lot of heartbreak, that's for sure. But hopefully they've been doing pretty well this year, so we'll see.
Well, I hope you don't have any heartbreak during the season, and you guys go very, very far.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. We're gonna, get off to a late start here a little bit, but we got our two big guys back, and so they're a year younger, a year more skilled. So hopefully they'll provide some good leadership, and then we got 2 other seniors that are going to come in from the football team to help us out, hopefully. And then the big thing is we're going to have to replace our guards. We got a lot of good senior guards that left our program last year. Now we got some athletic JV kids coming in, so we definitely think we have an opportunity, but it's going to take a little time for them guys to develop and get a little bit more skilled and understand the game. But we're definitely setting our sights high, that's for sure.
Well, I appreciate you, and I can't say thank you enough for spending some time with me talking about your kids and your program.
Hey, Michael, thank you for having me, and thank you for doing this. We enjoy it.
That's Marion Local Flyer Basketball with Kurt Goettemoeller. We're back to finish up the MAC in just a few. The final coach of the Midwest Athletic Conference now, all 9 have been on here, and Carson Manger, the head coach at New Knoxville. You've got a terrific team coming back, kind of guys that are juniors and seniors that have had high success kicking the ball around. Now they've got to try to figure out how to switch it up and throw it up through a hoop. I've got to believe that drop kicking a shot is probably still not legal.
Unfortunately not. We've got about 90% of our team playing soccer. We would have a good shot at getting a couple goals per game.
Well, and it would be a big advantage, too, because, I mean, only maybe one kid for the rest of the back teams would have that advantage if he was the kicker. But, I mean, since nobody else has soccer, I would like to believe, the barn is big. You guys could pretty much just do whatever you want.
It'd be nice if that was the case.
Shooting the basketball, you guys weren't bad, though, either. Second in free throw percentage at almost 75, which is just unheard of. And the fact that you led the conference in three-point shooting with over 36, those I know are things that have bothered coaches at Knoxville before because they just, for whatever reason, hadn't been going down. Your big emphasis this year, though, is we can't give up almost 60 points a game no matter how well we shoot.
Yeah, absolutely. And 60 points in a high school basketball game is way too many points, especially if you're Even if you are the top scoring offensive team in the league, especially in our conferences, you're not going to win many games giving up 60 points a game. So that's going to be a huge emphasis that we have this year. And pointed a really good point out at the charity stripe, getting second in the conference in that and first in the conference in 3-point percentage. I would love to get to the free throw line a lot more this year to try to get some more attempts. And so far throughout our scrimmages and our practices, that's been an emphasis and just working on our assertiveness and making sure that we're staying aggressive and we're attacking under control.
But, that's, there's not really anything you get mad about. 3 out of every 4 is a percentage that a lot of teams would like to have. And you look at the 60, you guys get to 66 and your win over Ada. You give up 56, you're able to get those big stops. But a lot of games that for a good portion of it you were in just kind of having to foul or trying to stay close that teams were able to pull away late. Is that frustrating, or are you able to kind of box that up now where you can tell the guys, okay, now think about this. This is, 1 or 2 things we maybe didn't execute how we planned or whatever, and we would be in or we would be winning this game?
Yeah, I think a lot of it goes back to, having the 6-man rotation in a varsity game with one guy that's over 6'2" and over 210 pounds it's really difficult, especially like I said, in our conference, you're playing against a lot of guys that are 6'6" and 6'7" and strong because of football and really athletic just because of the different sports that they're able to play. And a 6-man rotation that we played last year was very, very tough. There were a few games that we hung neck and neck until halftime, and then outside of halftime, the second half comes or whatever it is, and you just kind of run out of some juice. And this year, I think we had a couple more guys into our varsity roster, and we're able to have a couple of different rotations coming in and subbing some guys out and getting some guys a break and getting some extra guys some valuable minutes. And I think that's going to really, really help us out this year and give us a little bit more flexibility in what we want to do.
I know obviously you've already done it, being that this is your 3rd year, but when you go back to Bremen, having played there, having starred there, almost 20 points a game there in your career before you went to play college, how special of a thing is that for you? And do you have to maybe kind of internally sort of, yeah, that's neat, thank you, hi, how are you? And then go, okay, guys, I know you don't care about that. Let's go out and win this game.
Yeah, I think it's definitely special. Graduating in 2015 from New Bremen, it'll always hold a special place in my heart, and I'm forever going to be grateful for what that community has taught me and supported me throughout my career. But when it comes time to game time, I'm 100% focused on the task at hand, and I don't let the outside distractions kind of get in the way of leading the young men that I lead and teaching them that, when it comes to competition, you step on that floor and it's game time and roll the ball out and let's go, no matter what the circumstances are. I've played against many friends, close friends growing up, and that was always the case. You get into game time and you're unfortunately not friends for 40 minutes or however long the game takes. That's just the beauty of competition, and I know all the guys that I played against that are really close friends will say the exact same thing.
St. Mary's makes that long trip to New Knoxville to start off the 23-24 season on the 1st. First of all, it's crazy that we're only a week and a half or so away from that. Second, you've got to be over the moon right now that the jersey that Austin Parks is wearing is a lot closer to yours down in Columbus than what it is that blue and gold.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a tough task to handle. I give all credit to our guys of not being wanting to accept the challenge, and that's something that they have always done since the day I stepped foot into that gym and into the program at New Knoxville. No matter what, I reemphasize that we are considered the underdog, and there's no better place to be than being an underdog and trying to essentially prove your worth and prove that you can hang with the best of them. And I give all credit to our guys and their ability and willingness to fight for not only themselves, but for each other.
I joked with Corey Stevens about a Route 66 Classic, but you guys pretty much have the same thing where I think you would be an entrant of, you go a little bit north, a little bit south, you pretty much hit every town on 66 in a 50-mile radius during the course of your season. Some of it being conference, but is that just, it's just easier? I mean, you get with, having to go to Bremen and then having Spencerville, you've got to go to on back-to-back nights. You go to Fort Loramie. That they're all great competition, but just not very far.
Yeah. No matter who you play around our area, it's you're guaranteed a good game, and far drive, short drive doesn't necessarily change what sort of atmosphere you're going to get in the MAC and outside of the MAC as well. I think the atmosphere is something that just makes the games enjoyable. I think that's one really huge benefit of the Midwest Athletic Conference is they always travel a lot of fans, and the communities surrounding are extremely supportive of high school athletics. And I love seeing the gyms packed, and I know that is a big fuel for teams that travel, and being able to really silence that crowd is one thing that fuels me, and I think it fuels my Rangers as well.
In your third year, you've now gone to places, you've been home with the same opponents the first 2 years. Is there anything after those first 2 years now as you enter that second cycle that you're really looking forward to this season?
There's something different about our culture this year than I have had the past 2 years over at New Knoxville. I feel a strong commitment not only from the boys to myself, but also from them to one another. And I think that just goes to show their willingness to lay it on the line for each other. And I think, as a building a program, you have to instill some core values, and you have to instill things that are greater than yourself in the program. And you're not going to win many games without laying it on the line for each other, especially in our conference. You can't win the game as an individual. You look at the many, many different state titles that the conference has, and not one of those teams has one star athlete that's not willing to lay it on the line for their teammates. And I think if you want to win around this area, and especially in our conference, that's something that you have to do. And I'm really looking forward to what we can do this year, because we are buying into the culture, and we're buying into each other, and really laying it on the line for one another.
Well, I think Knoxville has a hell of a coach and a great hire in you. I can already feel the last couple of years. I mean, like you said, what you guys have been doing, what you've been able to flip the culture, and I hope it translates into many wins, and you get to hang out in the barn every night, so I'm also jealous of that.
Being a small-town country boy growing up on a farm, there's no place that I would rather be than inside of the barn. So
you can no longer go home. Sorry. But I do. I wish you guys the best of luck this year, and thank you so much for coming on and talking about your program.
Absolutely. I thank you for having me on the show.
That wraps up the boys' coverage of the Midwest Athletic Conference with New Knoxville and Carson Manger. Back to wrap it up after this. Thank you so much for listening and staying tuned. I realize that it is a lot of information, but I hope you had at least one or maybe 10 interviews that you really enjoyed in this segment and in overall. If you've made it the entire way, can't say enough. Please, again, hit me up on Twitter, @MichaelHearnPBP. Tell me who it was that you enjoyed or maybe who you didn't. It doesn't matter either way. But I appreciate it, and I can't say thank you enough to the 45 coaches who were a part of it. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you get out to some games. Big ones coming up this weekend and all season long. Happy to be out there. If you see me, say hi. And you can always find me behind the mic. Have a great night and an even better tomorrow. And happy Thanksgiving.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Around the Hearn. Come back next week for more local stories from the NWO. But until then, be sure to follow us on Twitter @MichaelHearnPBP for more great area content.